Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about Missouri, the Show Me State. Now, the name Missouri comes from Native American origins. It was the name of, or derived from the name of the tribe that lived in the area. Missouria? Anyway. People of the big canoes is one possible interpretation. Wooden canoe people. Anyway, the tribe was in the area. They named some places, the Missouri River, for instance, after it, and then they named the state, or named the territory, then the state, etc., etc. Now, I was looking up as well the reason why Missouri is called the Show Me State. They have a reputation for being down-to-earth, practical people in Missouri, and one of their representatives to the House of Representatives, his name was Willard Duncan Vandiver. He was a representative from 1897 to 1903, and during that time he was giving an address to a naval banquet in 1899, and he said, "I come from a state that raises corn and cotton and cockleburrs and Democrats, and frothy eloquence neither convinces nor satisfies me. I'm from Missouri, and you have got to show me." So that kind of became, they became the Show Me State after that. In the facts area, so Missouri was granted statehood August 10th, 1821, making it the 24th state to join the Union. The capital of Missouri is Jefferson City, and the state has a population of 6.1 million people, making it the 38th most populous state. The area that the state covers is 69,715 square miles, which is 180,560 kilometers squared, roughly, making it the 21st largest state. The four largest cities in the state are Kansas City, St. Louis, or St. Louis, however you want to pronounce that. I've heard people from the east part of the United States and around St. Louis call it that, and I've heard people from the western part of the United States call it St. Louis. So, anyway, Springfield and Columbia are the other two cities there. It's interesting to me that we have a state called Kansas, but Kansas City is the largest city in Missouri. Interesting. The state of Missouri, kind of the history behind it. The French started exploring the region in 1673, and they retained control over the region for 90 years. And then there was the French and Indian War, and instead of losing that territory to the English, they gave control of the territory to Spain. So Spain ran the place or owned it from 1763 until sometime before 1803. Basically, the control of the territory reverted back to the French, and the United States then in 1803 purchased the Louisiana Territory, as it was called, from the French, which means that at that point in time, and at least prior to the purchase, shortly prior to the purchase of the Louisiana Territory, France was again owner of what would become Missouri. Now, Missouri was somewhat problematic during the Civil War, and in some ways, I would say it contributed to the cause of the Civil War. So, Missouri became a state in 1821, but the problem was that the North and the South were disputing over slave states and free states and who could join when and all that stuff. So Missouri was already kind of a slave territory at the time. my research, I didn't pull up an exact number, but a large portion of the state were slaves. So they had this compromise where in order to maintain the balance between the northern free states and the southern slave states, in order for Missouri to be granted stateship, they had to have a balance of another state entering the Union that was a free state. And that's why Maine was granted statehood as well, so that they would have a balance in politics, basically. And the northern border of what would become the state of Missouri, it was considered that that was the line, that any new state north of that line would be a free state, and any state that joined south of that line would be a slave state, which would be interesting if you kind of were a state that straddled that line. And if we back up to the map here, you'll notice that Utah, Nevada, California, out there to the west, straddle that line. So it would have been interesting to see what would have happened. Fortunately, we don't need to worry about that because the Civil War happened and we were able to abolish slavery in the United States. So Missouri was a divided state during the Civil War. There were quite a number of Union and Confederate sympathizers in the state. There were a lot of skirmishes. One of the significant battles of the state was the Battle of Wilson's Creek in 1861. It was the first major battle that was fought west of the Mississippi River. The Civil War ended, slavery was abolished, and then we have the post-war era where they were doing a lot of rebuilding. There was a lot of growth because Missouri had a lot of good farmable land, and so St. Louis, Kansas City, they were transportation hubs, and they got a lot of business. In fact, St. Louis still is a transportation hub in the United States. If you fly across the country, a lot of times you'll be stopping in St. Louis because you're changing planes there at the hub. Since then, 20th, 21st century, there's been a lot of diversification in the state's economy. They've gone into manufacturing, agriculture, and a lot of other stuff that has improved their economy there. There's a lot of movement during the civil rights. The Supreme Court case of Brown versus the Board of Education originated in Kansas City, Missouri. So it was quite a novel place to be during that part of the United States history. So the geography and climate of Missouri. Missouri is kind of broken into these particular areas. We have the Ozark Plateau. It's the southern part of Missouri. Hilly terrain, deep valleys, limestone, bluffs. There's a lot of caves and springs in the area, popular for outdoor aficionados. Then we have the Mississippi Alluvial Plain. So the eastern border of the state, you have the Mississippi River, which means that when the Mississippi River floods, you've got the floodwaters that enrich that part of the United States. You have the Missouri River Valley. It's one of the longest rivers in North America, and so the Mississippi kind of cuts the United States I shouldn't say in half, but it goes north to south. And then we have the Missouri River that goes east to west across, or west to east across the state and joins in to the Mississippi River. So that's part of why Missouri became a transportation hub. There's a lot of waterways to ship. We have the Mississippi River is quite large, and then you have another very large river, the Missouri, that cuts through the state. And because of that, you can do a lot of water shipping. Then you have the Northern Plains. Now, the Northern Plains, obviously the northern part of Missouri, and it's the more level part of the state, part of the Great Plains region. Now, if you've studied the United States at all, kind of the center part of the United States is called the Great Plains. And so you have a number of states that have very little change in elevation. They're really very flat. They're part of the Great Plains. So this is where you've got the farmlands, the grasslands, and the prairies that make up that part of the state. Now, usually I don't put in forests. Forests tend to fall into a geographical area of, it may be that the northern part of the state is some sort of mountainous climate, and the forest just kind of goes over the mountains. So in this case, they do consider it kind of a separate part of the state because it's in the southern and central part of the state, so it doesn't overlap with anything else. And so they have the Mark Twain National Forest there. The climate is considered a humid continental climate. It does have the 4 distinct seasons with, a summer that's typically hot and humid. You have temperatures from the upper 80s to the mid 90s in Fahrenheit, which is 30 to 35 Celsius. They do occasionally get temperatures above 100 degrees Fahrenheit or above 38 degrees Celsius. And yeah, it's going to be awful. In the winter, they have cold winters, but it's not extremely harsh. It's like some of the other states. January is the coldest month. Temperatures range between the low 20s to the low 40s in Fahrenheit, which is -6 to 5 degrees Celsius. It does have snowfall, but it's kind of relative at this point. It does get snow, but it's not necessarily as bad as some places and worse than others. So it's just kind of there in the middle. The spring and fall are fairly similar in their temperature ranges and things, with the weather being a lot more unpredictable as far as the storms go. Fall is a bit more pleasant, apparently, which I can get. As it starts warming up, if you got that humidity in there, it just makes everybody miserable. With the fall, it starts cooling off. So yeah, you have that more mid-range temperature, which makes things a lot more pleasant, but it's not that rising into the summer highs. It's falling into the winter lows. And so, yeah. The state is part of what is known in the United States as Tornado Alley, so they do get tornadoes through there. The tornadoes occur in the spring and early summer. They're more frequent towards the southern part of the state. And the humidity, they're relatively high humidity levels, especially in the summer. Yeah. There you go. If you're interested in visiting Missouri, I would advocate for maybe visiting Missouri in the fall, depending on what you want to do. Obviously, there is a lot of lake boating, swimming stuff that you can do in the state because they do have a lot of water, and so going in the fall may not be the best idea. Although I did travel to a lake in October in southern part of the United States, which is a bit warmer, and it was actually quite pleasant. Wasn't too hot, wasn't too cold, just right. The whole Goldilocks Three Bears thing. Okay, moving on to the industry. So in Missouri, the top industries are manufacturing, agriculture, healthcare and bioscience, finance and professional services, tourism and hospitality, information technology, and energy. Now, some of the largest manufacturers in the state, we have Boeing, General Motors, Ford, Emerson Electric, Leggett and Platt, Anheuser-Busch, Hallmark Cards, apparently, Procter & Gamble. So there's a wide array of what is done as far as manufacturing in Missouri. In the agricultural sector, we have Monsanto, MFA Incorporated, AgriGrow, FCS Financial, which is interesting. It's called Financial, but it's a leading that's why. It's a leading agricultural lending cooperative in Missouri. So they provide financial services. They should be on the other list. Financial services and support to farmers. So there you go. Then we have in the healthcare and biosciences, we have Pfizer, we have BJC Healthcare, Washington University School of Medicine, Mercy, which is a Catholic healthcare system, Centene. There's a bunch in the healthcare and bioscience. In the finance sector, we have Edward Jones, Wells Fargo, Commerce Bank Shares, City Mortgages. We talked about the whatever it was called, FCS Financial, which is interesting because it kind of straddles the agriculture and the finance and professional services. Let's see. Looks like I forgot to do I skipped one. I went from finance and professional services. I have special slides to talk about tourism and hospitality, so I've skipped that and went straight to energy rather than go into the information technology part. Now, in information technology, we have Cerner Corporation, DTS Systems, Worldwide Technology, Perficient, apparently, Jack Henry and Associates. Those are some of the big ones there. And then let's back up and go to the energy. We have Ameren Corporation, Kansas City Power and Light, Associated Electric Cooperative Inc., Spire Inc., NRG Energy, and much more. So those are some of the industries and some of the companies in those industries in Missouri. Now we'll get into the tourism. So as I mentioned a little bit prior, because of the natural resources and whatnot that are part of Missouri, there is quite a lot of quite a lot of those outdoor activities: hiking, skiing, swimming, mostly water skiing, not necessarily snow skiing. So there's a lot of those outdoor activities. One of the most iconic symbols in Missouri, in the state of Missouri, is the Gateway Arch National Park in St. Louis. It was the symbol of westward expansion. You can take a tram to the top of the arch, and you can see the city and the Mississippi River. There's also the Branson Entertainment District, which is apparently live entertainment district in Branson, Missouri. Theater shows, concerts, performances, music, comedy, magic shows, everything. They do it all there. We have the Mark Twain Boyhood Home and Museum, which is in Hannibal, Missouri. That's where Mark Twain was raised. And there's the museum there dedicated to him. We have the Ozarks, which are, we mentioned that Ozark Plateau, so it's a mountainous region, and there's canoeing, kayaking, hiking, camping, all that stuff there. There's also the Missouri Botanical Gardens, which is interesting. I'd never heard of the Missouri Botanical Gardens, but then I can't say that I've ever looked at botanical gardens. I think I've been to more than one botanical garden now. I think I've been to 2. And what makes the Missouri Botanical Garden interesting is that it was founded in 1859 by a man named Henry Shaw, who was a businessman and philanthropist. And he was really interested in being helpful once he was, he had the money to do so. And so he created the Botanical Gardens. And it is one of the oldest botanical gardens in the United States. So it's 79 acres, and it has a geodesic dome conservatory that replicate to have a tropical rainforest environment. So there's that. There's Japanese gardens. There's the Victorian District, Kemper Center for Home Gardening. So they do educational programs there to help home gardeners. There's a Science and Conservation Center there. They do education and outreach. They have festivals, and it's also part of the Shaw Nature Reserve is part of and managed by the Botanical Gardens. It's 2,400 acres of natural area located to the southwest, and it has a bunch of stuff there as well, hiking, nature education, a bunch of things like that. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, go for it. There's a lot to see and do in Missouri. Moving on to the trivia part of the presentation here. The ice cream cone. Supposedly it was invented in 1904 at the World's Fair in St. Louis. The legend goes that there was an ice cream vendor and he ran out of dishes to serve his ice cream. And next door to him was a waffle maker. And he went over to the waffle maker and said, I need something to put the ice cream in. So they rolled it into a cone shape, and that's how the ice cream cone was invented. The world's largest fork is located in Springfield, Missouri. It's a 35-foot tall stainless steel fork. Yeah. It's in front of the Springfield Art Museum. There is a lost city in Missouri. It's called Times Beach. It was a resort area that they were trying to build, and apparently in the 1980s, the town became contaminated with dioxin. And as a result, all the residents were moved out of the city. And so it's called a lost city now. Yeah, really bad. The state is home to Branson's Bald Knobbers. Now that sounds really disgusting. And they have a Bald Knobber Jamboree and a bunch of other stuff around Bald Knobbers. Now, it's a lot more tame than you would think. A bald knob is a hill that has nothing on the top of it. You go up the hill and the top has no trees, nothing. It's just open to the sky kind of thing. During the time right after the Civil War, a bald knobber was a vigilante, and they would meet on top of these hills. That's why they're called bald knobbers. But after the Civil War, they had a lot of vigilantes running around, vigilante justice and all that other stuff. So they wore masks, they had disguises. Yeah, it was really bad. But now the Bald Knobbers are live entertainers, and they are part of the Branson City Entertainment District. It still sounds bad, but yeah, it's a lot more tame than it sounds. So the first drive-through in the world was it opened in 1947 in Springfield, Missouri. A restaurant called Red's Giant Hamburg opened in 1947. St. Louis hosted the Summer Olympics in 1904. It was the first city outside of Europe to host the games. And they'd have a shoe tree. So Route 66, there's a tree near Carthage, Missouri, where people throw their shoes up in the tree. I don't understand that either. It seems pretty stupid and wasteful to me. Now, if you are a minor, you cannot buy happiness. Sounds funny. It is funny. Apparently in St. Louis, it's illegal for a minor to buy or possess sparklers or any other perishable item that could make them happy on public streets and sidewalks. So ice cream cones, sparklers, lollipops. If you're a minor, you can't have those. You cannot have happiness, apparently. In Excelsior Springs, it is unlawful for someone to frighten a baby by wearing a mask or a disguise. In Missouri, it is illegal to participate in bear wrestling matches. Yes, you cannot wrestle bears in Missouri. I don't know why you would want to wrestle a bear. That sounds really bad. It is illegal to mispronounce Missouri. Yes. And I have heard it's pronounced Missouri, like misery, Missouri. And I have heard people pronounce it Missouri. Apparently, it is illegal to mispronounce the name of the state. The first woman to vote her name was Virginia Minor. Yeah, Virginia Minor. In 1869, she became the first woman that was the first American woman. Missouri was the first state to grant women the right to vote in municipal elections. In 1869, Virginia Minor was the first woman to exercise that right. So there you go. I wanted to back up just a second because we did talk about the Gateway Arch. But it is important to note that the Gateway Arch in St. Louis is the tallest national monument in the United States. It's 630 feet high. So there you go. Jesse James. Jesse James was a famous outlaw in the Old West, and he was killed in Missouri. He was assassinated by Robert Ford, who was one of his gang members. Robert Ford at that time, if I remember right, the story is that Robert Ford had been deputized at that point, and so he was on the side of the law. Jesse James was still a notorious outlaw, and he killed him in St. Joseph, Missouri, on April 3rd, 1882. So, if you have questions or comments about Missouri, please leave them in the down below in the comments. Let me know if you've been to the state. Let me know what you thought. Let me know if you are from the state, and if I got something wrong, please let me know. If you have any questions or comments about the other states that we've explored, please like, comment, and subscribe. Turn the bell on so you get notifications, and have a great day.